Chapter 10, Labor Camps, January 1976. By our third month in row leap, things began to worsen. The villagers work longer hours with decreased food rations. The soldiers roam about daily, looking for young, able-bodied men to recruit into their army. If recruited, you must join. If you refuse, you are marked a traitor and could be killed. For this reason, my parents forced Coy to marry Lane, a young girl from a nearby village. Coy, who is only 16, does not want to, but Pa says he must stay out of the Khmer Rouge army. The Khmer Rouge are less likely to recruit him if they know he has a wife who will give sons to the Yankar. Lane also does not want to marry my brother, but her parents force her to as well. They fear that, left alone, she might be raped by soldiers and end up like Davy, another young woman in our village. Davy is the teenage daughter of one of our neighbors. She is about 16 years old and very pretty. Despite the war and the famine, Davy's body continues to grow into that of a young woman. Like all of us, her hair is cut short, but unlike us, her hair is thick and curly and frames her small oval face nicely. People often comment on her smooth brown skin, full lips, and particularly her large, round brown eyes with their long lashes. Davy's parents never let her go anywhere by herself. Her mother follows her when she goes to collect firewood and guards her when she needs to relieve herself. Her parents are skittish about her, grabbing her arms and pulling her away anytime someone tries to talk to her. Davy is rarely seen without a scarf covering her head or a mud on her face to hide her beauty. Yet no matter what they do, her parents cannot protect her from the gaze of the soldiers who patrol the village. One evening, 3 soldiers went to the family's hut and told her parents they needed Davy and another friend to go with them. They said they needed the girls to help them pick corn for a special event. Davy's mother cried and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "Take me," she begged the soldiers. "Davy is a lazy girl. I can work faster and pick more corn in less time than she can." "No, we need her," they retorted sharply. Davy cried harder at their words and clung desperately to her mother. "Take me," her father pleaded on his knees. "I can work faster than either one of them." "No, don't argue with us. We need her, and she must perform her duty for the Yankar. She will return in the morning." Then the soldiers grabbed Davy by her arms and pulled her from her mother's shaking hug. Davy sobbed loudly, begging them to let her stay with her mother, but the soldiers dragged her on. Her mother fell to her knees, palms together, and pleaded with them not to take her only daughter. The father, still on his knees, lowered his head to the ground, banged his forehead on the dirt, and also pleaded with the soldiers. As the soldiers took her away, Davy turned around many times to see both her parents still on the ground, palms together, praying for her. She looked back until she could see them no more. The sounds of Davy's parents' anguished cries echoed into the night. Why were they doing this to her? In our hut, the faces of my family were somber and hopeless. Coy and Pa sat on either side of Kev, who was contorted and white with fear, wondering what would they do if the soldiers took her. Kev, who was 14, the same age as Davy, sat holding her knees to her chest, her eyes misted over, her shoulders heaving visibly. Hearing her sobs, Ma left Gek with Ju and crawled over to Kev and wrapped her arms around her. Without a word, the rest of us moved to our sleeping spots and tried to go to sleep. Shivering, I crawled over to Ju and grabbed her wet hand and lay on my back, staring at the ceiling. In the black night, we tried to sleep, but we were kept awake by Davy's mother, who wailed like a she-wolf who had lost her cub. True to their word, the soldiers returned Davy to her parents the next morning. But the Davy they returned was not the same one they took away. Davy stood before her parents in front of their hut, hair disheveled, face swollen, shoulders slumped, arms hanging like dead weights. She could not meet the gaze of her parents. Without a word, she walked past them and into the hut. They stepped aside to let her enter and followed her in. Their hut was quiet from then on. A few days after her abduction, the bruises on her face turned deep purple before they gradually disappeared. The scabs on her arms dried up and became little scars, barely visible. But to Davy, they would always be there. I see Davy sometimes in line at mealtime, but she no longer talks to anyone. Her body walks as if there is no more life in it, and her head is always down. No one speaks about that night, and no one ever questioned her about what happened, neither her parents nor the villagers. Whenever I see Davy, I veer away from her path. If there is a gathering of people, they become quiet when they see Davy. As the days go on, more and more people begin to treat Davy as if she were invisible. Sometimes I catch Davy's eyes watching the villagers at the town square, when she lingers there long after the crowd has departed. Other times she marches straight into the group of people, as if daring them to say something to her. The gatherers shuffle their feet, cough into their hands, avert their eyes, and walk off in the opposite direction. Often, Kev heads towards Davy, only to clench her fists and walk back to us. The soldiers do not stop with Davy. They come many more nights and take many other girls. Some of the girls are returned in the morning, but many are not. Other times the soldiers come back with the girl and tell her parents they have married. It is her duty, they say, to marry soldiers and bear sons for the Yankar. Many of the girls who are forced to marry soldiers are never heard from again. It is rumored that they suffer greatly at the hands of their husbands. The soldiers are often heard saying women have their duty to reform for the Yankar. Their duty is to do what they were made for, to bear children for the Yankar. If they do not fulfill their duty, they are worthless and dispensable. They are good for nothing and might as well die, so their food rations can go to those who contribute to rebuilding the country. There is nothing the parents can do to stop the abduction of these young girls, because the soldiers are all powerful. They have the power of judge, jury, police, and army. They have the rifles. Many girls choose to escape from their abductors by committing suicide. To protect Khoi from being conscripted into the army and Lane from being abducted by soldiers, they are married quickly in a quiet, secret ceremony, with both sets of parents giving their blessing. After they are married, Khoi and Lane go to live at a labor camp where they are assigned to work. Pa does not fear the Khmer Rouge soldiers will want Meng to join the army because he is physically weak, so Pa allows him to stay unmarried. However, the soldiers say that Meng, at 18, is too old to live at home with us, and they force him to go live in the labor camp with Khoi and Lane. Unlike our village, only young men, some with wives and others single, live in the camp. There they do hard manual labor of loading and unloading shipments onto trucks. Khoi reports that they mostly load rice and unload arms and ammunition. For their hard work, they are given more than enough food to eat. My brothers secretly dry their leftovers and bring them to us when they visit. In the beginning, Meng and Khoi were permitted to visit us every other week. But as time goes by, the soldiers make them work longer hours and allow them to return to Ro Leap once every 3 months. When my brothers visit us, Khoi's new bride, Lane, having no family in our village, stays behind at their camp. For this reason, I know very little about my sister-in-law. I have only seen her the one time at the wedding ceremony and thought she was very pretty, even though her eyes were wet with tears. During his visits, Khoi speaks very little about his wife, beyond the fact that she is alive and well. It is clear, even to me, that this is a marriage of convenience and not of love. There are times when I stare at my brother from across the room and search for the martial artist who jumped in the air and made me laugh. But the martial artist is gone now. In Phnom Penh, Khoi never just walked from one place to another. He sauntered and glided, stopping many times along the way to greet friends and pretty young women. Wherever he went, a crowd of people always surrounded him. In our small grass hut at Ro Leap, Khoi sits next to Pa and talks incessantly. He sits with his back straight to the wall, as if afraid to lean on it. With his legs crossed and his palms flat on the floor, he is ready to leap up instantly. He is still strong, but the energy and confidence that attracted girls to him are gone. At 16, he is already old and hard and alone. Even with us, he wears a mask of courage that stretches tight over his inflexible face. Whereas Khoi always put on a brave front, Meng's face hides nothing from us. When he speaks, Meng's voice softens and trembles as he tries to reassure Ma and Pa that everything is okay at the camp. Unlike Khoi, whose body is made more muscular from hard work, Meng's is thin and lanky. Sitting in our hut, he slouches into the bamboo walls, and his breath sounds labored and exhausted with each word. When he looks at us, his eyes linger on our faces, as if absorbing every single detail so he will not forget. Under his gaze, I shift my position uncomfortably and move away from his sight, troubled to receive such love from my brother when all around me there is only hate. A few months after Khoi and Meng left, rumors that the Yuan, or Vietnamese, have tried to invade Cambodia causes the Khmer Rouge to take many teenage boys and girls from their homes. One day, 3 soldiers come to the village and tell the new people gathered at the town square that the Yankar needs every teenage male and female to leave tomorrow for Kong Chat Lat, a teen work camp. Upon hearing the news, Kev's eyes well up with tears and she runs to Mom. Everyone has to honor and sacrifice for the Yankar, the soldiers yell. Anyone who refuses Yankar's request is an enemy and will be destroyed. Anyone who questions the Yankar will be sent to a re-education camp. Kev and Ma turn to each other and embrace. Pa silently turns his head and takes Gek from Drew's arm. In the morning, Ma packs Kev's black pajama pants and shirt in a scarf. Kev sits next to Ma with their hands touching. Quietly, we walk out of the hut and over to the town square, where other teenagers and their families have already gathered. The other teenagers all have tears in their eyes, as do their distraught parents. Kev and Ma embrace and hold each other so tightly that the knuckles of their fingers turn white. In a matter of minutes, the soldiers come and lead the children away while we watch in quiet despair. My heart feels as if an animal has clawed it out. I try to muster a smile so I can send my sister on her way with a final picture of hope. She is Pa's first daughter, and at 14 she must survive on her own. Don't worry, Pa, it will be all right. I will survive, she says and walks away, waving. In her black shirt that hangs below her bottom and pants that are frayed at the hem, she looks smaller than the rest of the group. I remembered then that in Phnom Penh, when she was the most beautiful girl on our block, Ma said that she could have her pick of anyone to marry. Each month, Kev would travel with Ma to a beauty salon to have her hair styled and her nails painted. I used to watch Kev fuss over her school uniform, pressing and repressing her blue pleated skirt and white shirts so they looked as crisp and new as possible. Now the joy of beauty is gone from her life. With the red and white checked scarf covering her thinning, oily black hair that peeks out beneath it, she looks more like 10 years old than 14. Kev follows the soldiers with 20 other boys and girls and never turns to look at us. Ju and I stand together with tears in our eyes and watch Kev's figure until she is no longer in sight. I wonder if I will ever see her again. At the other side of the town square, some base children scurry back home. Though there are no gates, an invisible line divides the village in 2 halves. The new people know better than to cross the line. Occasionally, the basemen walk through our side of the village, spying on the new people and inspecting their work. A few base children who have not yet gone home stand there now, watching us with frowning faces. Rarely do I ever get to see them, or recognize them as individuals. I don't even know how many base children there are in the village. In their new-looking black pajama pants and shirts, their arms and legs fill out their clothes and their faces are round and fleshy. I narrow my eyes with envy and hatred. It is good for the family to be separated, Pa says quietly and goes off to work. Ma says nothing and continues to look in the direction Kev has disappeared. Why did she have to go? Why didn't Pa beg the chief to let her stay? I ask Kim when my parents cannot hear me. Pa is afraid the soldiers might learn who he really is. The Khmer Rouge soldiers will hurt the whole family if they find out Pa worked in Lon Nol's government. If we are separated when they discover who Pa is, they cannot get all of us. I never understand how Pa knows things. He just always does, and he keeps us informed so he will not be careless with our information. Pa, will they kill us? I ask him later on that night. I heard the other new people whispering in the town square that the Khmer Rouge soldiers are not only killing people who work for the Lon Nol government, but anyone who is educated. We have education. Will they kill us too? My heart races as I ask him. Pa nods grimly. That is why he has told us to act stupid and never discuss our lives in the city. Pa believes the war will last for a long time, and this makes the very act of living sad for him. Every day we hear the tales of other families who cannot see the end of their terror and thus commit suicide. We live knowing we are in danger of being discovered at any moment. My stomach churns with nausea at the thought of death, but I do not know how to go on living with such sadness. I remember painfully the anger I felt toward Ma when she spanked me for breaking her fine china plates, or screamed at me for jumping on the furniture, for fighting with Ju, or trying to sneak candies from the cabinet. Then, as a 5-year-old used to getting my own way, I stormed through the apartment during my tantrums. Lying in my room in a tearful sulk, I often wished I were dead. I wanted to make her suffer for what she did to me. I wanted her to feel hurt and guilty, to know that she drove me to kill myself. Then from the heavens I would look down and gloat over her misery. That would be my revenge. Above the clouds I would look down at her puffy, sorry face, and only when I believed she had suffered enough would I return to forgive her. Now I realize that when you die, you don't get to come back to life whenever you want to. Death is permanent. To fight death, the new people work hard planting rice and vegetables. Yet it seems that the more crops we plant, the less food rations we receive. The harder we work, the thinner and hungrier we become. Still, we plant and harvest while the trucks come and go with our crops in order to continue the war. While Ma and Pa help the war effort in the fields, Kim returns home each night from his work at the chief's errand boy, bruised and injured from his own war. Handing the leftover food to Pa, Kim talks loudly about his day as Ma touches his bruises, whispering softly, "Thank you, my little monkey." Without a word, Pa takes the food and rations it to us. Sitting on our step with Ju one evening, I see Kim's figure walking slowly home. Above him, angry clouds cover the sky so no stars can show him the path home. In his hand, he carries the leftovers wrapped in his kromar, and my stomach lurches with happiness and anticipation. As he nears us, I see his shoulders heavily hunched over and his feet drag as if he is trudging through mud. "Kim, what's wrong?" Ju asks him. Not answering, Kim silently climbs into the hut, with Ju and I following close behind. In the dark, Kim walks to Pa, kneels before him. With his head down, he says in a trembling voice, "Pa, the chief told me not to go back to his house." Pa is still and breathes softly. "I'm sorry, Pa," Kim says. "I'm sorry, Pa," Kim repeats, his words softly floating in the air. Hearing his despair, Ma puts Gek down and crawls over to him. Reaching him, she wraps her arms around his head, pulling him into her chest. "Thank you, little monkey," she whispers in his hair, stroking his hair as his shoulders heave up and down. The wind outside blows violently now, trying to part the clouds, but to no avail. The stars are still hiding themselves from us. Ju and I reach for each other's hand and brace against the chills. Since the day we first arrived in Ro Leap 5 months ago, the chief's steady supply of leftovers has kept us from starving. Now we will again go to bed hungry. After what seems like a long silence, Pa tells us that we will get through this somehow. The next day, standing in the rows of red ripe bell peppers, tomatoes, orange pumpkins, and green cucumbers, I thought of Kev. It is now March and a month since she had left. Kev loves pumpkin seeds and used to eat them noisily at the movie theater. Thinking of her makes the sun burn hotter on my skin, and my pores push out more water, drenching my clothes. Next to me, Kim wipes his forehead and continues his work in silence. Our job is to fill up the baskets and deliver them to the cooks in the communal kitchen. As my fingers pluck the green beans, my mouth waters. Feeling the fuzzy hair of the beans between my thumb and finger, I crave to put it in my mouth before anyone sees me, but instead I drop it in the basket. "I'm hungry," I say quietly to my brother. "Don't eat the vegetables. The village chief will beat you if you get caught." Heeding his order, I continue with my work, stopping every once in a while to steal a look at my brother. In Phnom Penh, while Paul took us girls to the swimming pool on Sundays, Kim usually be found in the movie theater across the street from our apartment. When we returned, we would be greeted at the door by Bruce Lee, the Chinese god, the Monkey King, or a number of kung fu masters ranging from the drunken disciple to the dragon claw to the Shaolin monk. Throughout the day, Kim, in character, would jump, sway, twirl, punch, and kick at Ju and me whenever we were in the room with him. Remembering the little monkey of Phnom Penh, I look away. I wish Kim would go back to work for the chief and continue to bring us their leftovers, but the chief doesn't want Kim to work for him anymore. Neither Kim nor Pa was given any explanation to why he sent Kim away, but Pa suspects it has something to do with someone named Pol Pot. Lately, the base people in the village are whispering the name as if it is a powerful incantation. No one knows where he comes from, who he is, or what he looks like. Some people are saying that maybe he is the leader of the Angkar, while others argue that the Angkar's leadership is comprised of a large group of men. If it was Pol Pot who gave the order to place more soldiers at the village level, the increase has created a shift in the power balance. In the beginning, the chief was all-powerful and ruled the village with his enforcer soldiers. Now the number of soldiers has multiplied, and they wield more power, and the chief's role has been reduced to that of a manager. "Kim, where are the soldiers taking all the food?" I ask. When the Angkar formed armies, there wasn't enough money to buy guns and supplies for the soldiers. The Angkar had to borrow money from China to buy guns and weapons. Now it has to pay China back, Kim explains as he continues to drop the vegetables into our straw basket. If China is helping the Angkar and giving them money, why then do the soldiers hate us Chinese so much? The other kids hate me because of my whiter skin. They say I have Chinese blood in me, I whisper to him. Kim stands up straight and sees the other children are out of hearing distance from us. I don't know. We should not talk about this. The Angkar hates all foreigners, especially the Yuans. Maybe the peasants cannot tell the difference between a Chinese and a Yuan, who also have light skin. To someone who's never left the village, all white-skinned Asians look alike. Later that night, Pa tells Kim that the Angkar wants to expel all foreigners. It wants to bring democratic Cambodia back to its glorious past. The time when Cambodia was a large empire with territories encompassing part of Thailand, Laos, and what is now South Vietnam. The Angkar says we can only do this if no one else owns us. I do not care why or how the Angkar plans to restore Cambodia. All I know is the constant pain of hunger in my stomach.